a mysterious biker rushing somewhere. While he's being chased, a Mr. O frantically looks for his son, Oh Ki-hoon. He approaches Madame Na, who runs the operations, and her agent is none other than Yoon Chae-ok, who now goes by the alias Silverbill. Ki-hoon has been missing for 10 days, and Chae-ok takes up the job to find him. Back to the biker, he is surrounded by tons of masked men, who all jump him at the same time. He puts up a good fort and kills most of them, but he is soon taken down. Captain Kuroko takes off the biker's helmet and we see that the man looks like Jang Tae-sung. It seems like he has been a nuisance to Kuroko, who knocks him out. It cuts to the last shot of Season 1 as Tae-sung's look-alike, Hoja, wakes up in his home. He has a surgical scar on the back of his neck. He is a PI and works with Jun-taek's grandson, Yong-gil. They take up low-level cases such as exposing illicit affairs by recording them. Their next case takes them to a motel where, coincidentally, Ki-hoon has been hiding. He has sketches of the Neijin, but whoever he is running from finds him and kills him with Neijin-like tentacles. Hoja shows up at the same time Chae-ok does, and a fight ensues as she tries to escape. She grabs the sketches and runs off, while Yong-gil shows up with security. The men are shocked to see Kim-hoon's corpse, and to make matters worse, Kim-hoon was never their target. Yoksu entered the wrong room. As Chae-ok runs off, the killer watches her and smiles. The PFS are taken to the police station, and it seems that they constantly lock heads with Captain Yu. The cop points out that Hoja is the prime suspect, and if he doesn't want to take the fall, he needs to find the real killer in 10 days. As the cops investigate, it is shown that Ki-hoon worked as a bodyguard for Jeonsung Biotech. Mr. O is heartbroken to hear his son is dead, and begs Silverbill to find the killer. She spots Hota via the motel's CCTV and agrees to O's request. We also see that she is wearing the bracelet Tae-sang had given her. Meanwhile, Hoji is going through his recorded footage, and all he gets is a glimpse of Chaya. Yong-gil wants to run off, but he recalls his promise to Jun-taek and decides to help Hoji. Yong-gil's informants spot Chae-ok as she always waits on the roof of a building till sunset. Hojo follows her while the killer sneaks into her place. The killer finds a sketch of Tae-sung and looks surprised. He also has 2 different eye colors. As for Chae-ok, she catches on to Hoja and confronts him. They fight, but once again she takes him down. But she finally sees him properly for the first time and tears up as she believes he is Tae-sung. Hoja is further confused as she calls him Master Jang and hugs him. It also seems like his ears are ringing when she calls him Master Jang. Out on the bustling streets, there are tons of ads for Jeonsung Biotech, which is known for its research on human betterment and evolution. Shingjio and Kato have written books on it, which are bestsellers. Onsung Hospital is one of the research centers for Jeonsung Biotech, where the doctors are still experimenting on humans. Her vision is hazy, and she suddenly finds herself surrounded by dead bodies. 2 kids are begging for their lives, and she comes to her senses and panics. She runs out and sees there are more dead bodies on the street, all killed by her. It cuts to Korea's independence. She watches from afar as Tae-sang and everyone celebrate. She leaves just before he can spot her. At present, she wonders why the Najin kills have begun again. She is even more confused to see Hoje and thinks he is Tae-sung. He says that she is mistaken and that his name is Jang Hoje. She suddenly turns cold and tries to leave. He hopes they can work together and find the real killer. But she refuses. Curious about Tae-sang, Hoja asks Yong-gil, who suddenly gets shifty as he says no. They are interrupted as Yu's partner, Detective No, shows up. As for Chae-ok, she comes home to find that Tae-sung's sketch is missing. It has reached Madame Na's hands as the killer enlists her to find Hoja. It seems that Hoja has been missing for a year, and the killer wants Chae-ok to find him. But, as he tries to dig into Chae-ok's past, Madame Na gets wary and tries to warn her. The killer catches her and kills her before she can text Chae-ok. Back at the office, Detective No shows Hojae the case file on Jongno-gu serial murders. All the victims have been killed like Ki-hoon. It has been happening for 2 months, and the brain is missing. While she wants to help Hojae, it seems that she doesn't trust him. He catches her when she tries to plant a bug, but they suddenly get the call on Na's murder. All the major players end up at Na's bar, with Hojae spotting Chaeok, who spots the killer. A chase ensues as Chaeok goes after the killer, and Hojae follows her. Chaeok catches up to the killer, who figures out that she is like him, Najin. He stabs her, but before he can kill her, Hojae finally arrives and pushes him away. While he frantically calls for help, the killer is shocked to see Hojae before running away. As for Chea, she blacks out and dreams that she is with Taesang. At present, her bracelet falls as she tries to hold on to Hojae's hand. He waits for her with the bracelet, but is surprised when she runs off. Meanwhile, Jonsung's chairman is furious with Sungjo, the killer, for being careless and killing civilians. Captain Kuroko does the dirty work as he beats up Sungjo and tells him to keep his impulses in check. They don't see eye to eye as they have ideological differences. Sungjo believes that Ki-hoon escaped because Kuroko was lax. The captain grounds him, but he continues to goad him, as he asks if Hojo is truly dead. Senyan's fellow guard warns Sunjo to never take Hoja's name again. While the detectives are at their wits' end, Hojae generously pays an informant to get Chaeok's address. The informant, an old lady, is touched as she reveals her grandson has just started working at Jungsung. She calls him Master Jung, and Hojae's interest is piqued. She shares that he is kind and helpful, just like Jung Taesung. She also reveals that his PI office is in the same location as Taesung's pawn shop. Back at Jungsung, the Neijin experiments are a failure, as Kuroko is unable to control the subjects. The chairman is furious and threatens to replace him with someone else. We also learn that Kuroko is a Neijin, courtesy of the previous chairman, Kato. Meanwhile, Hojae keeps pestering Yonggil about his past, as he cannot remember anything before the last year. Yonggil claims that the past Hojae was miserable, and it is better to live in the present. They are once again interrupted, this time by Chaeok, who has recovered. She wonders if Hojae's offer to team up still stands. Elsewhere, Sungjo hides Chuk's things in his drawer and then looks at Myungja's photo. Whenever the Neichin is tired or injured, it needs to feed on humans. Chaeok imagines killing the man next to her and rushes to her place to stop herself. She injects herself with something and it calms her down. She finally notices that her bracelet is missing, the only thing she has of Taesang, and she cries. As she is about to figure out her next move, she finds Hoja's card that he has left behind. It has his Bugang company's address. At present, Na is listening by the bug, but it isn't much help as Chaeok doesn't give Hojae any information. At that moment, Sungjo is loitering around the lab, and Kuroko is annoyed with him. Sungjo continues to goad him, and Kuroko points out that he performed surgery on Hojae because he got annoying, threatening to do the same to Sungjo. Finally, Sungjo brings out his ace card as he tells Kuroko about Silverbill. At that moment, Hojo calls him and they set up a meeting while Kuroko watches curiously. Of course, Null overhears via the bug and plans to tail them, while Hojo ropes in a begrudging Yonggil as their getaway driver. Elsewhere, the granny informant, Mrs. An, welcomes her grandson home. An Ong-hyuk is disabled and tells her that he will be gone for a month for some training. Back to our leads, they leave Yonggil in the car and head into the abandoned building. Chae keeps reiterating that Hojae should run on the first sign of trouble. As for him, he keeps pestering her for her name. She acts annoyed, but she secretly finds him endearing. Their bickering is short-lived as they are suddenly surrounded by multiple Neijins and she realizes it is a trap. As the Neijins attack them, Yonggil overhears the noise and tries to help, but he is stopped by Sungjo. Inside, Chok claims that Hoja is holding her back, and she pushes him out of a window. While she takes on the horde, Hoja sees that Yonggil has been knocked unconscious. Sungil greets him and wonders if Hoja has any old memories. A confused Hoja doesn't have time to register, as Sungja attacks him. The fight is short as Hoja is no match, while Choja is taken down with nitrogen and brought outside. As for Ho-cha, he tries to crawl to Chaeok as Sungjo stabs her. Sungjo suddenly sees a vision of Seishin stabbing Chaeok. Sungjo is about to kill him too, but hesitates when he sees the scar on his neck. This gives Yonggil time to run over the Neijins and rescue Chaeok and Hocho. An amused Sungjo stops his men from following, as he believes that Chaeok's creature will kill them to heal herself. Right on time, a hungry Chaeok wakes up in the car and crashes it as she tries to get away from the men. Hojat follows her while she begs him to stay away. However, he hugs her as he suddenly gets a vision and calls out her name. She cries and hugs him back. Noel finally arrives at the site of the car crash. A heavily injured Yonggil and Hoja are lying unconscious. There is a bloody bat between them, and Chaeok is missing. OJ dreaming about Onsong Hospital. He hears Mrs. Nawal's voice and sees Chaeok and a Neijin monster before waking up. He's in the hospital, but is handcuffed, as Detective Nok reveals that the bat only has his and Yonggil's DNA, and that Yonggil is critically injured. Hodja finds it preposterous that he is accused of assaulting his friend, and wants to see him. She refuses, and wants answers from him as she keeps asking about the murders and Chaeok. He feigns ignorance, but his last memory is of Yonggil knocking him out as he hugs Chaeok. Elsewhere, Chairman Shinji-oh and Lady Maeda are drinking tea, and the latter insists that they need to amp up their progress. She goes on about human nature being weak and selfish, while another woman eavesdrops from outside. The cops arrive at the abandoned factory and are confused by the destruction and lack of dead bodies. Detective Yu tells No to bring Hoja to the station and finds a canister of nitrogen belonging to Jonsung Bio. While she works on getting Hoja discharged, Sugong pays him a visit. Hoja is ready to fight, but Sung-yu asks him if he wants to find Chaeok, who is imprisoned in Onsung Hospital's underground cells. Hoja sneaks out with Seungjo just in time as Noah enters his room. As the cops surround the hospital, Hojo veers from Seungjo's escape plan and visits Yonggil. He asks why he hit him, and a sedated Yonggil simply begs him not to go back. The cops arrive, but Hojo's long gone, giving Seungjo the slip as well. At Onsong, the doctors scan Chaeok and learn that while the Najin usually embeds itself on top of the brain, in Chaeok and Sung-jo's case, it is latched to the back of their brain. They reason that, like Sung-jo, Chaeok must have gotten a mature Najin from her mother. Meanwhile, Chong's trying to break out when An Jong-yok from the next cell reveals that it is futile. She wonders what is going on, and Chong-yok reveals how John Sung-bio approached him for a trial to cure his polio. In a flashback, we see Jong-yok and a couple of other subjects being given Neijin-infested water. If they drink it, 10 million won will be given to their parents. If the trial is a success, they will be healed from their various ailments. It cuts to most of the subjects dying, while a scared Jong-hyuk watches. At present, the Neijin lurks inside Jong-hyuk's neck, and Cheok is shocked. As for Herje, he rushes home and tries to find answers from Yonggil's desk. He spots a hand near Juntak in his photo, and he opens the frame. Tons of photos fall out, and it is of the Gyeongsong crew with Taesung. Herje suddenly relives the memory as Mrs. Nawal flirts over his tie, and Madame Na flirts with him. Juntak is shy, but Taesung pulls him into the photo. Oja comes out of the memory and recalls Cheok staring at a wall in his office. He realizes that it is hollow and breaks it. It leads to Taesung's treasury, and he sees tons of fake IDs with his face. He also finds the wanted poster of Cheok after she killed Ichiro in Season 1. Suddenly the lights go out, announcing Sungjo's arrival. He sneaks up on Hojo and toys with him as he beats him up and calls him weak. No arrives as well, but she is too late, as Sungjo and Hojo are gone. Sungjo drags him to a water tank that houses a larger than usual Neijin and requests Hojo to go back to the way he was before. At that moment, Kuroko visits Cheok, who has tons of questions. He indulges her in a quid pro quo as he shares that Onsong Hospital has turned into Jonsung Bio. It was founded by Kato and Maeda and is currently run by Kato's son, Shinji-oh. Cheok looks hapless as she realizes that Gyeongsong crew's efforts to take down Onsong and Kato have been in vain. She doesn't answer Kuroko's questions, and she is dragged to meet Lady Maeda. However, the old lady is not the same Lady Maeda from Season 1. The old lady moves aside and the real Lady Maeda arrives. Young and beautiful, the way she was in Season 1 before the explosion. Maeda greets Cherok and smiles. 2 years after Ancien Hospital's downfall, Lady Maeda calls Tae-sang to Madame Na's cafe. We see that Maeda is still human and scarred. She wants an apology from him and points out that she went above and beyond to help him as a friend. He declares that friends don't count favors and tells her to leave the country. As he tries to head out, her men surround him. At the pawn shop, more men arrive and brutally beat up Mrs. Narwhal, Mr. Gu and Beomo. Narwhal puts up a fight, but they throw her down the stairs. As for the men, they hang Gu and Beomo. At the cafe, Tae-sung is similarly outmatched. He is almost at death's door when Maeda comments that for her, loyalty is friendship. She then injects him with the Najin and drops him at the pawn shop. He wakes up to see an injured Marwhal and the dead men. As he cries and tries to take down Gu and Beomo, the Najin is activated. Marwhal tries to help him, but he almost attacks her. They have a bittersweet farewell, and as Narwhal escapes, Tae-sung becomes the Najin. At present, Maeda meets Saek and is fascinated. She claims that Saek should be glad that because they created Seisin, she is alive. He adds that Tae-sung is also alive because of her, and Taek is horrified. She asks why she is being so cruel, and Maeda declares that if she cannot be friends with Tae-sung, she will be their hell. Kuroko wonders why Chaeok is being added to the experiment, and Maeda states that it isn't experimentation, it is revenge. Kirukofo takes Chaeok to a glass cell, and she sees Songjo and Hinja in front of the Najin tank. She finally realizes that Hinja is indeed Tae-sang and promises to break him out. However, he cannot hear her, and Songjo tells him to choose, to die with Chaeok or save her. Taeok crawls towards the tank, but Chaeok begs him to stop. While Tae-seng is infected again, Chaeok attacks Kurokova. The guards blast her with nitrogen gas, but she builds up tolerance as she grabs a mask and makes her way out of the cell. She tries to get to Tae-seng, but she is delayed as more and more Najin guards show up. Mrs. Ahn heads to the Bugang office and is shocked to see Detective No. She defends Ho-chae and tells No that she has it all wrong when the cop claims he is a suspect. Mrs. Ahn demands to speak to her captain, and when she gets Yu on the phone, she talks to him informally. Meanwhile, Tae-song gets his memories back and attacks Seong-jo. He tries to make his way to Chaeok and realizes that he has lost all his rationality, as the only thing he wants is her. A fight ensues on both ends of the corridors as Tae-song and Chaeok try to make their way to each other. Tae-song is so engrossed that he doesn't realize that all the guards are dead, and he stabs Seong-jo when she reaches for him. Maeda watches from the CCTV and demands Tae-sang be brought to her while giving the guards free rein to kill Chaeok. However, Song-jo destroys all the CCTVs and even kills one last Najin guard with his tentacles as he makes his way to the couple. Kuroko and the rest show up and find the couple gone and Seong-jo injured. Seong-jo claims that they have escaped via Tunnel 5. Kuroko notices the dead guard with the tentacle injury but heads to the tunnel anyway. Turns out Seong-jo is in cahoots with Tae-sung as he tells him about the Najin army headed their way. Tae-sung acts as bait, leading the guards to Tunnel 5, while Seong-jo helps Chaeok escape. Tae-sung and Seong-jo regroup at Tunnel 5's secret exit, and we see that they are friends. Tae-sung ruffles his hair, and Seong-jo acts annoyed as he gives him a disguise. Kuroko isn't able to find anyone in Tunnel 5 and calls Seong-jo to him. Tae-sung makes his way out and finds Chaeok waiting for him. They hug and end up kissing each other. A haunting flashback to Lady Maeda adopting Seong-jo after a tragic accident where he unintentionally kills the help. Maeda, cold and calculating, warns Seong-jo that he must never be caught. In order to gain her approval and perhaps to find some comfort in her, Seong-jo submits to everything she asks, including being experimented on by Kaito and his team. But as he overhears Kaito's explanation of his transformation, Seong-jo is struck with the painful realization he is not special, he's merely a part of a cruel experiment. The DNA-altering effects of the Najin virus that were injected into him, specifically by Myongja, have left him in a state where he can partially transform, unlike the other Najins or the terrifying anthrax Najin creatures. This painful truth shatters Songjo's image of himself, leaving him to reckon with his humanity. Fast forward to the present, and Songjo sits down for breakfast with Lady Maeda, who mocks him for meeting Taesong. She hands him a vial that immediately unsettles him, triggering fear and uncertainty in Songjo. Alone later, he frees Ahn Jong-hyuk, whose violent rampage at the subway station leaves the city in chaos. Kuroko confronts Songjo, who reveals he knows the captain's true intentions. Meanwhile, Taesung and Shaok share an intimate moment, only to be interrupted by Sungin, who reveals the horrific news about Jong-hyuk's attacks. As tensions rise, the mystery deepens when Yeo finally connects Yeon-sung to the serial murders, and flashbacks reveal his conflict with Mrs. Ahn. She scolds Yeo for targeting Taesung, a man who once helped her family, while directing him to focus on finding her missing grandson, who was involved in Jeon-sung's fraudulent project. Yeo's suspicions grow as Detective No also becomes increasingly wary of the ties between Taesung and Jeon-sung. In a tense moment, Chairman Shin scolds Kuroko for Jong-hyuk's escape, but Kuroko, driven by his obsession with Lady Maeda, turns the blame onto her. As the plot thickens, Kuroko vows to protect the company by any means necessary, even if it means killing both Chairman Shin and Lady Maeda. The complex and deadly game continues. Taesung prepares to meet Jong-hyuk, and in an emotional moment, Chok rejects his outdated belief that she needs protection, standing firmly by his side. Meanwhile, Songjo, struggling with his loyalty and feelings, reflects on how Taesung was the first person to truly acknowledge him. Songjo confesses that a year ago he was even ready to help Taesung take down the Jeon-sung labs, yet his failure to act haunts him. In another harrowing flashback, Lady Maeda overhears Songjo declaring he would die for Taesung, and in her fury, she injects him with the vial that temporarily suppresses his regenerative powers. Without his abilities, Songjo is left vulnerable, unable to heal when his hand is cut. In a heart-wrenching moment, Songjo watches helplessly as the Kurokos overpower Taesung and throw him from a bridge. Back in the present, Songjo betrays Jongcho by injecting her with the vial, terrified of Maeda's wrath. The stakes escalate as Kuroko tries to plant seeds of doubt in Taesong's mind, questioning his trust in Songcho and Taesong. Taesong, however, remains resolute, determined to defeat Chongsong before he can live a life with Chaesong, with a flashback revealing Kuroko's motivation. His disabled girlfriend is relying on him to find a cure, and in 3 months, he's told that Jong-hyuk's Najin transformation will be ready for transfer. In the present, Seongjo reveals Lady Maeda's manipulative plan. She orders Seongjo to bring Chaeok to her, intending to force Taesong to kill his lover with his own hands. Seongjo believes that the only way to save Taesong is by killing Chaeok first. As Seongjo attempts to do so, Chaeok tries to appeal to his human side, but Seongjo chillingly admits that he enjoys the thrill of killing. Before he can carry out the act, Detective No intervenes and shoots Seongjo in the eye. However, the situation escalates when several Kurokos appear, surrounding both Songjo and Chaeok. Chaeok fights back but is subdued. Songjo, realizing Lady Maeda has betrayed him, tries to escape. Meanwhile, a battle unfolds between Captain Kuroko and Taesung. The vial falls during their fight, and Taesung is about to use it on Kuroko when Kuroko tells him to save it for Lady Maeda. Kuroko reveals that he doesn't care who wins the fight. His only concern is curing his disabled lover. While waiting at the Najin tank, Kuroko learns that Ahn Jong-hyuk has been kidnapped by Maeda for a trap intended for Taesung. With no mature Najin left to cure his lover, Kuroko makes a deal with Maeda, forcing Taesung to choose between saving multiple people or saving Chaeik. If Chaeik dies, her Najin can be used to cure Kuroko's lover. Icherok is brought to the Najin tank, and in a moment of introspection, she reveals she is not afraid of death, only loneliness. Kuroko is moved by this, but he throws her into the tank regardless. As the temperature drops, Chicherok's Najin activates, but it's not enough to save her before the 24-hour limit. The Najin is ejected, and Kuroko, elated at the thought of retrieving Chicherok's Najin, is soon disappointed when Taesung arrives and destroys the tank. In a flashback, we see Yeonggil pleading with Lady Maeda to spare Taesong's life a year ago. Maeda agrees to keep Taesong away from Jeonsung, but warns Yeonggil that he will die if he fails. In the present, Taesong and Detective Yul are kidnapped and thrown into a cage with Jonghyuk. Lady Maeda reveals her experiment. Since Taesong insists that all lives are equal, she gives him a choice: save 3 men from Neijin anthrax monsters, or save 2 men from drowning. Lady Maeda also hints that she manipulated Seongjo into helping Taesong regain his memories, as she still considers him a friend and feels lonely since he forgot her. Taesong, disgusted by her, stabs her with the vial, deactivating her Najin. As the Kurokos attack and the largest anthrax monster threatens the men below, Taesong kills the Kurokos and opens the cage, allowing Yu, Yeonggil and Jonghyuk to escape. Taesang battles the monster while the 3 men flee to the elevator. Maeda releases nitrogen, putting the monster to sleep, which allows Taesang to escape with his breath held, and Maeda realizes she cannot stop him as he heads toward Chaeok. As the 3 men make their escape and the cops arrive, Detective No becomes suspicious of a shady cop, realizing that the cop is wearing the same watch as his kidnapper. He figures out that the cop is working for Yeonsung, but he lies to him. Detective Yu orders No to get a warrant for Yeonsung, leading to an investigation into illegal human trials. However, Chairman Shin manages to evade charges, since the lab is never found. Seongjo finally confronts Lady Maeda in the lab. She confesses that she wanted to kill him a year ago when he sided with Taesung, revealing that she was trying to rid him of his human weaknesses so that he could be his best self. Seongjo realizes that, in her twisted way, Maeda cared for him. He promises to do exactly what she wants but not rely on anyone, including her. He then stabs her and throws her into the cage, where the sleeping anthrax monster's anthrax burns her. As she dies, Maeda finds it beautiful. In the post-credit scene, we see that Jeonsung is still secretly experimenting with Neijins. This time, Sunjo oversees the experiments, and Chairman Shin takes pride in the operation. Workers infect bottled water with Neijin, which is then sold to the public, suggesting that Jeonsung's dangerous experiments are continuing on a larger scale. As for Chaeok, she is now human again, but she has lost her memories. She lives with Mrs. Orn, and photos of Mrs. Nawol with Song-ah, the oldest girl prisoner from Season 1, suggest a familial connection. Mrs. Orn reveals that her mother had always spoken highly of Chaesang. Mrs. Orn makes Chaeok breakfast and teases her about finding a boyfriend, noticing she's wearing Taesang's bracelet. Chake laughs it off but feels a sense of longing. On her way to class, Chake crosses paths with Taesong, who smiles at her, confident that they will be together again.